Ladies and gentlemen, Heath Enwright.
All right. Hello, everybody. All right, here we go. First speech that I've ever done, actually, my first talk. So, this is my nightmare. You guys have fun with this? You get to watch my, thank you, yeah. Get to watch my literal nightmare unfold right here on stage. You're all just looking at me like, make a word symphony now. Such a bad idea. No, I got this. And you gotta be kidding me, I'm following Tracy Harris, really? Who is amazing. Give it up for Tracy one more time. Super smart, super clever, great job on that, thanks. Tracy, enjoyed it. Right after this, we got Tyrone Wells, PhD. I'm the guy from the Dick Joke Podcast Network. Fuck it, here we go. Let's do this. So, we've got 30 minutes or so. Here's what I want to do. I want to solve all the problems in the world. So let's get right into it. What's the one thing that the world really needs to make it a better place? Shout it out. What do you guys got? One thing. I heard pot. Interesting. Okay. Love, great. Love, sweet love. The world needs now. Great answer. I heard, I'm not going to repeat that one. I heard some good answers except that last one. Personally, I'd say the one thing that kind of ties together most of the stuff you guys said, it's empathy. The world needs some empathy. And hopefully it's something you're feeling right now as you watch me live through my terrors. Hopefully it's something you feel when you read the news, too. It's rough to read the news right now. You know what the headline never says? It's never like, extra, oppressed groups ran out of problems, no more bigotry solved. That's not happening. You might see that in the Twitter feed of the President of the United States, but you're not gonna read it in the real news. So let's talk about empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of other people. If you have it, you're capable of maybe being a good person. If you don't, you should really think about getting some. And I say that from a place of experience. I do not naturally have a lot of empathy. I learned a new word from Tracy today. I'm a skablinsadliniac. Right? Yeah. So the point is, though, you can get some if you try. You can bump up your stats a little bit. The problem is, empathy is basically, it's a synonym for un-American at this point, which is terrifying. We live in a country where the organizing principle is basically, I don't know, you figure it out. America, I got mine, right? And our economic philosophy actually says that empathy is a bad thing because it interferes with that market solution, that beautiful, elegant market solution that economists and Americans who think they're economists love so much. So let's talk about how to fix that. Let's talk about how to make some more empathy happen. I'm guessing I'm not the only one here who's a skablinniac, empathetically impaired. We're at a skeptics convention, right? We're all about logic and reason and data. That's our thing. So what we need to do is find cold, heartless arguments in favor of not being cold and heartless, right? So if you ask people like me and our evil robot brain to just empathize with having empathy for the sake of empathy, we don't process it very well. Now, when I say evil robots and our evil robot brains, I'm talking about me, but I'm really talking about your terrible, ignorant, evangelical uncle at Thanksgiving. So we're gonna try to trick that guy into being a better person a little bit. That's the idea, for spite. But for society too, blah, blah, but like mostly for spite. For me, it's mostly for spite. So welcome to the first ever How to Win Thanksgiving Against Your Ignorant Uncle. That's what we're doing. Now, Who has an ignorant uncle? Hands up. Or an ignorant cousin, whatever, mother-in-law, father-in-law, father-not-in-law. Your dad sucks. Yeah, lots of people. And here we are at a gathering of weirdly intelligent people, plus me, and a lot of hands went up for ignorant family members. And some of you try to talk to them, maybe on Thanksgiving. Who's tried to open a dialogue on Thanksgiving about something with an ignorant family member? Yeah, bunch of hands. Okay. And who's turned that person into a woke, enlightened person by the end of the day? Yeah, none, exactly. So we're gonna try to bump up that batting average a little bit. That's the idea. Baby steps, bump up the batting average, tiny bit. Now, he might not be woke by the end of the day, genuinely enlightened, but we're gonna make some baby steps. And we're gonna use two different angles. We're gonna use the cold, heartless facts. That doesn't always work. We're also gonna use the Bible against him, because he thinks those are facts in that book. So as far as he's concerned, it's just one angle. You're bringing facts. Some of them happen to be from a book he really likes. So I'm going to tell you how this went with my ignorant Uncle John when I tried this 2 years ago at Thanksgiving. I'll be honest, it didn't go amazing. I conveniently didn't make it back to Thanksgiving last year. But I did make some progress. A lot of mistakes, but a little bit of progress. So we're going to learn from both of those things. I'll tell you about what worked for me and what didn't. And we're going to try to hit on 3 major topics with Uncle John. Thanksgiving's only one day. Keep it tight and right. 3 topics. We're going to start with an easy one that you can maybe get some common ground going with him. We're going to start with free speech. You got the First Amendment in there. You got religious freedom in there. That's sploosh for evangelical Uncle John. He'll be excited. Now, a lot of you are aware that the First Amendment also has the foundation of our secular government here. He's probably not going to know about that. He learned about the Constitution and the amendments from Ken Ham and David Barton and a Minions meme. So just, you're just establishing a little common ground. First Amendment, religious freedom, whatever, sploosh. He's going to be excited. In my experience, he might be mildly erect also. But you push past that. It's Thanksgiving. He's family. Is that better or worse that he's family? Doesn't matter. I have a weird family. Very good point. Mine's from North Carolina and sort of Iowa. Anyway, from there we're going to move to step 2. This is where it's starting to get a little tricky. We're going to try to come up with some cold, heartless reasons to appreciate cultural diversity. It's getting ambitious. Just stay with me. Finally, step 3, we're going to close it out with the idea that if society shared its wealth a little bit better, that'd be mathematically better. Just more happiness units for everybody. And the angle we'll take with Uncle John, it's my Uncle John, it's going to be better for the intrepid businessman too, not just the bottom of the economy. And that's the angle you take with him. Now, we could go into plenty of other topics where there's a very clear, data-driven reason to believe in one side of that argument or the other. Climate change is a real thing. You should never hit your child, ever do anything violent to your child. Vaccines are real and don't cause autism. God is dead. There's just a lot of objective truths that should have almost unanimous support, regardless of your political alignment. But that would take like 10,000 Thanksgivings. We're going to stick with these. And by the way, on the anti-vaxxer thing, if you have an anti-vaxxer uncle showing up at Thanksgiving, based on my experience and based on my mom's very stringent regulations, he's at the quarantine table, which is very far away, and he's duct taped into a hazmat suit, and the mask, you can't really talk to him. Anyway, those are for another 10,000 Thanksgivings. We're going to stick with the 3 topics I named. Step 1, lube him up with some free speech. Step 2, explain how being a bigot is actually bad for the economy. Now, to be clear, that's a ridiculous reason not to be a bigot, but it's Uncle John. It's Uncle John. You got to work with it. You got to finesse it. I'm going to say that word finesse a lot. You got to finesse this guy. And then step 3, explain how a country with 3 people who have more wealth than the entire bottom half plus, that's a problem for the economy too, not just for the people at the bottom. It's a problem for business. Okay, so we're gonna go step by step over the course of Thanksgiving, and I really did make a little progress with this plan. Some glass projectiles too, granted, but you gotta imagine my Thanksgiving. This is my family of Irish people in upstate New York. There were gonna be glass projectiles either way. So here's how it went when I did this 2 years ago. I get there around 11 a.m. and again, Irish family, Thanksgiving, upstate New York. Uncle John is pretty deep into the morning whiskey at this point. But I get, before it's too crazy, I get him started on a common ground topic. I figure I'm gonna appeal to his libertarian ideals. Uncle John, you're kind of a libertarian, right? You're all about like freedom of choices, that kind of thing. Cool. Let's talk about women's choice, women's rights. And I'm an idiot, so I go straight into abortion. This was a bad idea for Thanksgiving talks. Why don't we call that lesson 1 from my mistakes? Don't bring up abortion on Thanksgiving. We should be yelling about this topic, no question about it. But maybe just skip it for one day. 364 other days you can yell about this. So big swing and a miss with that one. Didn't go well. So I pivot to free speech, and that's what I'm suggesting we actually use for step 1. And this actually helped. Now, some of you might not like the way that free speech is being used right now. It's often used to protect terrible people with terrible ideas. I totally understand that. Again, it's about the finessing of Uncle John. You gotta throw some smoke screens. You gotta kind of pump fake to make him feel like he's not wrong about everything. He probably is wrong about everything, but you gotta let his guard down a little bit. And think of it kind of like a chess game. You're sacrificing a pawn to maybe bring out his queen too early and trap it later. That's the idea. And you're not even really sacrificing the pawn. You don't have to give up your opinions on anything, but you're just gonna finesse him. It's a long con with Uncle John. So I started by saying something like, again, this is part of the long con. These kids are taking it way too far with the political correctness as it applies to free speech. And I know he's gonna appreciate that. I don't think that's, again, long con. And he likes it. He kind of grumbles something about, Instagram and fucking dot matrix printers and fancy. Those are 2 things he thinks are modern. So I keep going and I say something like, rational discourse is important. We need to be able to speak openly about topics that might be unpleasant. And this was actually a bit of a mistake. Ran into some trouble here because Uncle John got way too excited at this point, and he's like, yeah, free speech, saying whatever we want, slur word, I love this game. And I was like, no, look at me, I'm big and weird looking, calm down. I show him the shiny thing, ease him back into the conversation. And I explained, I wasn't going towards hate speech there. That's weird that you thought that's where I was going. I'm just saying, open discussions. So he gets that part anyway. Side note, I was actually thinking about another angle for step 1, and this might sound like a little crazy hot take, but here it is. So Donald Trump is not the best president. Oh. Have you heard about this? Have you seen this? Enjoy that word symphony? Yeah. But Uncle Johns tend to like Donald Trump. And again, this might sound crazy. Here's the hot take. I think it might be possible to sneak your way into agreeing with the Trump thing. Stay with me. I will explain. I'm talking about a hypothetical Trump thing, not something he's actually said or done. So here's how you do it. You start by explaining that you think American politics has become too polarized. And I think that's true. I think it's a problem. I think we're so polarized that, honestly, if Donald Trump actually did a good thing, a liberal like myself might not be able to admit it. He could cure cancer tomorrow, and I'd be like, no. There's like a bigot thing in there or something. Like, he cured all the white cancer or something like that. But the point is, he could theoretically, accidentally, kind of ass backwards, broken clock himself into doing something good. Now, if you said this in better words than I just did, I think you could get Uncle John to let his guard down a little bit more. That's all I'm saying. All right, so I gave you a couple different angles for step one. You know, choose the way you're going to do it. Moving on to step two. And we're all sitting down for the big meal here. So I give it a second. I let him soak up some of that afternoon whiskey with plenty of stuffing. He's on to the afternoon whiskey now. So am I, actually. All right. You guys have good bourbon here. And so this is when I say, hey, Uncle John, you know what's messing up the economy? And he says, laziness. Not helpful, not helpful. My cousin's dog jumps up. He's like, hey, Uncle John, the dog talks. He's like, hey, Uncle John, that weird high-pitched whistling noise you're making right now, super obnoxious. You wanna tone it down? Thanks. But here's another tip from my mistakes. Don't ask rhetorical questions like that. Don't set him up to interject his narrative. Don't even let him think about his narrative. Just calmly work in your narrative. And the point you're making here is that the answer is bigotry. Bigotry is something that's potentially messing up the economy. And here's what's happening. You're making him think about something he doesn't really care about by linking it to something that he does really care about. And the basic idea is places with less bigotry are way better. Just, you know, overall better. You get a better local economy, which Uncle John actually would respond to. You got better food, you got a store besides Walmart. There's a lot of good things going on. And here we are in Kentucky, which I think is a good case study for this. This is the home of Covington Catholic and Kim Davis and the stupid fucking Ark Park that I had to drive through. It's the home of Mitch McConnell, too. Yeah, boo. Absolutely boo. By the way, Kentuckians, bring it in. Let me ask you something. What the fuck is happening to his face? It's melting? Is he melting? Is it like a weather thing here? I'm in Cincinnati. It's right there. I'm not far away. Is he melting? He's very... Okay. He's, you know, it's like one of those commercials for the honey-flavored cereal with the dip, and then the... He's very drizzly. Yeah, okay. Yeah, oil company money. He's got resting pitch face. Absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting off track. He's got a distracting face. So yeah, here we are in Kentucky, but more specifically, here we are in Lexington, Kentucky. You know, say what you will about parts of Kentucky. Lexington seems like a pretty cool place. I've walked around a little bit, saw some people with, you know, a shirt with a pride flag, people of all different backgrounds getting along. It's good stuff. I was actually at a bakery, and I was getting my afternoon cakes, like you do. And in the bakery with me was a gay couple ordering a wedding cake. Yeah, good stuff. And one of the guys noticed this, and I was kind of like nodding and being like, huh, successful transaction, good stuff. That's awesome. And he like picked up a Danish he had and kind of gave me like a cheers motion. It was a nice moment. Okay, sorry, back to the game plan. Here's how you get stupid Uncle John on board with this idea that diversity might be good for the economy. I'll start with the angle that did not work very well. And this angle was cold, hard facts. So another good takeaway, lots of people who say they're all about the data are liars. So you gotta have a backup plan. But here's how I started. I started by saying, hey, fun fact, when members of the LGBT community move into your area, your property values tend to go up. That's a trend that we've seen. We have the correlation that we have some data on. And again, this is where I ran into some trouble. It felt like a pretty reasonable data point, but here's where I ran into trouble. First of all, Uncle John is somebody for whom data can be uppity, you know what I mean? In his mind, like math is a Ponzi scheme if it doesn't agree with him. And here's the other problem. I mentioned this thing about the property values, and I see him start to form a counter argument, and he's not the sharpest, so he's doing that like slow motion wind up, like he's just give me a fucking second, I'm gonna get a counter argument. He's doing it, and he's squinty, and he's getting a visible headache from all the Ponzi scheme mental math, and he's sweating aggressively at this point, more than normal. And then he starts kind of smiling, and that's a bad sign. That means whatever he's about to say is probably going to have something racist in it, which is true. He's about to say something like, well, when an ethnic minority moves in next door to me, my property value goes down. And sadly, tragically, that's sometimes true, at least in the short term, thanks to centuries of bigotry and, people like Uncle John. But I see his stupid face slowly trying to make this point. He starts to make his point. I was like, this isn't going to be helpful. Let's go in a different direction. I bring up one other data point. I say, did you know that companies, on average, that have more diversity have more revenue? This is another thing we have data on. There's a correlation there. He's still not hearing it. He's not having it. This data's too uppity for him, whatever. So when facts don't work, it's time for Bible facts. Alternative facts. So here's the other angle I took. I started by bringing up ways that Christianity could get more followers. Obviously, I don't really want that, but again, we're finessing this. So I point out that if Christianity would renounce the parts of the Bible that endorse slavery, there's one example of a way you could get more people on board. And he had a counter argument for this right away, which was kind of upsetting. He says, well, all the parts that endorse slavery are in the Old Testament. I'm all about the Jesus parts. So first of all, no, that's not true. The New Testament in Ephesians and Timothy and Titus has stuff that endorses slavery. Super racist throughout New Testament, Old Testament. But he doesn't know that. And that's actually helpful. So I just let it go. And I'm just like, no, cool. Just the Jesus parts. Got it. Totally get it. You're a gospel man, right? And he gets excited at this because now I've given him a little nickname, and he's an idiot. So getting a little nickname is exciting, right? So I say, yeah, cool. We're just going to stick with the Gospels. Did you know that there's nothing in the Gospels that says it's wrong to be gay? And this was a big moment. He paused for several beats, way longer than he would ever normally pause after a conversation like this, drinking so much as he does. He pauses, he kind of looks up, he gets another headache, and he says, really? And I said, yeah, really. And just like the point I was making with slavery before, if Christianity would renounce the homophobia parts, you could get more people on board. And this actually made him think again. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a win. If we can make idiots think for 3 seconds about a good idea, that's all you can ask for on one day on Thanksgiving. That's a win. That's a small win, but it's a win. All right, so we got through step 1, we got through step 2, we got a few different angles to take, data, Bible against him, made him think a few times. That brings us to step 3. So we're having dessert, and we're drinking a little more whiskey. I start explaining why it'd be better for society if wealth was spread out a little bit better. Better for business too, Uncle John. So here's the thing with Uncle John's. They probably don't have $30 million of wealth, right? They're at your mom's house for Thanksgiving. They're not at their chalet in Stad. They didn't invite you to Aspen. So just from a self-interested perspective, if they don't agree that spreading the wealth out a little bit better is a good idea, they're being kind of stupid. They'd get some of that wealth. Somebody's tricked him into believing he's about to have $30 million, but he's clearly not. Definitely not my Uncle John anyway. So you got to trick him one more time. Or you got to, bend him one more time. And here's how it worked for me. I started with another little nod in his direction. I said, hey, I think we have some common ground when it comes to the economy. I think we both agree that capitalism is better than communism. Now, this is another one, like the freedom of speech thing. You might not agree. I personally do think that capitalism with heavy constraints and a very large social safety net, socialized medicine, I think that's better than communism, but you don't have to agree with that. Even if you're all the way communist, just, throw him a bone here. Again, you're loosening him up, you're doing some finesse. Just, say something like, we can both agree that everybody shouldn't have the exact same number in their bank account. You work a little harder, you work a little smarter, maybe you get a little bit more in the end. That's all. just remember that chess game. You're playing the chess game. We're gonna get somewhere with this guy. So this is where I start talking about somebody starting a small business, right? The backbone of America, the American wet dream, the job creator. And I tell him to imagine a plucky entrepreneur. I throw in a few other words, kind of like plucky, he loves those. You can go with savvy or moxie or gumption, it's a good one. Maybe perspicacity, there's a lot of, you know what? He's not gonna know the word perspicacity. He's gonna get nervous. Let's call it a 3-syllable max. But you know, just throw in one of those, just pick one, and quick lesson here, don't spread it on too thick. I've been telling the story kind of jokily, but when you actually do this, if you want to take it seriously, don't try to win points with him along the way. Just kind of smoothly present your narrative, and you're going to hope to win in the end in some way by making him think. The way I spread it on too thick, when I said gumption, I threw on a little too much Uncle John, North Carolina accent, and he got kind of suspicious. He didn't like that. The point is, though, if you really want him to think about these topics in a positive way, if that's more important to you than roasting him in the moment, you got to be smooth with it, right? Now, don't throw away the roasting, to be clear. You can roast him later, for example. You can roast him at a talk during a skeptical conference. You could have my job, and you know what? I'm on several shows where we kind of roast the stupid as our organizing principle. That's great stuff, and I think that does change minds in a different way. So there's a time for the roasting and the yelling and the being really angry, and I think there's also sometimes a time for the chess game. That's kind of where I'm going with this. Just pick your moments. Maybe we make Thanksgiving the one out of the 365 where you try this other strategy. So back to our job creator, really quick. I tell Uncle John, imagine this plucky entrepreneur, and let's say he starts a company selling widgets for $50 a piece. And then I realize I got the perfect example. I say, forget the widgets, that's too general. Imagine our plucky entrepreneur is gonna sell bootstraps. I know you love a good bootstrap, Uncle John. He's like, I do love a good bootstrap. He's on board. So I was like, yeah, of course we don't want the government just giving away bootstraps, right? We want a market solution for bootstraps. He's still on board. Again, he's an idiot, didn't detect any of the irony on that. And by the way, let's call our plucky entrepreneur, let's call him Booty McBootface, just for fun. Don't do that in real life, just be cool. I'm gonna call him that for today, but don't spread it on too thick, right? So I keep going, I say, all right, we want Mr. McBootface to achieve the American dream, but if all the wealth is concentrated at the top and the middle class kind of dries up and becomes almost poor, if only one rich guy in town can afford to buy a $50 new thing, that's gonna be way harder for Booty to sell bootstraps, and it's a vicious cycle, right? And it's also a weird thing to buy in bulk, right? Bootstraps, yeah. Buy in bulk, that's strange. And apparently my Uncle John was paying attention here, because he jumps in and he's like, right, plus the rich guy won't want to buy a boots. Why would he even need a bootstrap? He's probably not gonna buy anything. And I was like, yeah, totally. You were weirdly plugged into my hypothetical scenario. Good job, gospel man, high five. We high five. So I keep going and I'm like, so even if the rich guy wants 500 pallets of bootstraps, now McBootface LLC, they're selling at wholesale price and it's cutting into their margins a little bit and they're not making as much profit and they're not creating as many jobs. That's what we wanted, right? Also, all those poorer people, they're not getting any bootstraps and they continue, I know you hate this, not paying taxes. And here's another thing I know you hate, Uncle John, they keep sucking up government resources. I'm being sarcastic here, but he finishes my sentence like an asshole and he's like, sucking up government resources, exactly. I was like, yeah, that's right, gospel man, fist bump. And my Uncle John high fives my fist bump. Like an idiot. I let it go. I move on. And here's where I added a couple extra points that I think are great points, but they didn't go particularly well. As we've learned, great points don't always win. I started by pointing out that universal health care is a good way to maybe spread the wealth. And I also mentioned that universal health care might actually be better for businesses too. And you know who agrees with me on that, Uncle John? You know who said they agree with me on that? Donald Trump. And he was like, oh, really? And that's true. Donald Trump has said that a few times. So he's kind of on board with this thing I've said, but he's also kind of suspicious because I said the buzzwords, universal health care, and his Pavlovian Fox News response is to just, he starts growling a little bit. So I rub his belly, calm him down, give him a treat. And I throw in one other method that I think is good for spreading the wealth, a much larger estate tax. Growl comes right back. He's heard the word tax now, he's not having it. But this is actually an important one. You guys should look it up if you're not clear on this. The estate tax is like the perfect tax. There's no dead weight loss. We could go into like the economics of it. It'd be kind of dry and boring though. It's not working for me though. If you've got an Uncle John who's educated on economics, that might work. Get into it, but it's not working for me. So from there, I went back to my ace in the hole. I was like, so, gospel man, all this econ stuff, all this data, that's all well and good, but it's not the ultimate point, is it? I think we can both agree, bottom line, the ultimate point is, it's just like Jesus said. If you want to be perfect, go sell what you possess and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Matthew 19:21, gospel, boom, win-win, right? You got treasure in heaven as a win. You got Jesus is happy about it. McBootface LLC is getting good sales numbers now. It says win-win-win. It's 3 wins. And he actually started thinking one more time. He thought about it for a second, and that's a win for me. I can't express this enough. I know it's just, you feel like you're just barely chipping away, but that's a win. If we could get all the stupid fucking Uncle Johns in the world to just shut up for a second and think about a positive idea, just a little bit, I think we're going somewhere. We're making the world maybe he might think about it the next day. It might make his behavior a little bit better. He might end up with a little bit of empathy. So that's the idea. That's kind of the general concept. Yell at him all those other days. I'm happy to hear about you yelling at him all those other days. But try this on Thanksgiving. All right, so we made it through our game plan. I'm almost done here. I promise I'm about to wrap it up. Really quick, what did we learn? We learned that, first of all, data is great, but it's not always going to work. Get ready with that Bible in your back pocket. Use it against evangelical Uncle John. More importantly, think about using the finesse. Just one more time. Think about trying out this chess game just on Thanksgiving. And I get it. I can't express this enough. I understand. You want to yell at this guy. You want to get in his face. You want to be like, dude, you were born on third base. You think you hit a triple, and now somehow you've managed to steal back second base and first base because you're an idiot. Just you're awful. I get you want to yell at Uncle John. I totally understand that. You're presented with ignorance, especially ignorance in the form of bigotry. You have a very violent reaction to that. You want to be yelling so hard. I totally get that, but it's not going to work for this particular chess game angle. Probably won't work great for Thanksgiving. So just try this out once in a while. All right, so last thing. Here's how I like to think about it. Here's how I sum up this whole thing. Uncle John, he's the Band-Aid in the pool of people, right? You don't want to touch him. You definitely don't want to stir things up right next to him. He might touch your leg and you're just like, ah! Scream. But somebody's got to get in there delicately with a tweezers and just and change his position. It's got to happen. It's the responsible thing to do, at least to try this angle once in a while. That's all I'm saying. So that's pretty much the whole idea, and we've gotten through it. Last thing. This is basically unrelated, but it's a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. It's something we all need to unify on, or else, honestly, the terrorists win. Use the Oxford comma. We're living in a society. So if you guys take away one thing from this talk, empathy, schmempathy, use the goddamn Oxford comma.